There was a man who worked the same job for 11 years. He arrived at the same time every morning, sat at the same desk, followed the same routine, and drove home along the same road every evening. From the outside, his life looked stable, even comfortable. But inside, something was eating him alive. He had dreams. Big ones. He wanted to start a business, travel the world, provide a life of abundance for his family. Yet every time he sat down to take action, something invisible pulled him back. He'd pick up the phone to make a call, and put it down. He'd open his laptop to write his business plan, and close it minutes later. He told himself he was tired, that tomorrow would be better, that the timing wasn't right. He had no idea that he wasn't fighting laziness or fear. He was fighting something far more powerful, far more deeply rooted, something that had been running his life since childhood without him ever knowing it existed. Then one day, a friend handed him a cassette tape. On it, a man with a voice like thunder and the calm of a sage said something that stopped him cold. "Your paradigm is not who you are. It is a program. And every program can be changed." That man on the tape was Bob Proctor. And within 18 months, the office worker had left his job, launched his business, and was living the life he had only ever allowed himself to dream about in secret. What changed? Not his intelligence. Not his circumstances. Not his connections or his bank account. What changed was his understanding of the invisible force that had been controlling his every thought, habit, and result. He finally understood the paradigm, and more importantly, he learned how to break it. What you are about to hear changed his life. It may very well change yours too. Bob Proctor spent over 60 years studying the human mind, not the brain as an organ, but the mind as a force. He read Napoleon Hill, he studied Dr. Thurman Fleet, he absorbed the works of Thomas Troward and William James. And after decades of research, teaching, and transforming lives across every continent, he kept returning to one central idea. Most people are not living the life they want, not because they lack talent, not because the world is against them, but because they are imprisoned by something they cannot see. He called it the paradigm. A paradigm, in Bob Proctor's language, is a multitude of habits, a collection of beliefs, assumptions, and conditioned responses that live in the subconscious mind and govern virtually every decision a person makes. It dictates how you see yourself, how much money you believe you deserve, how you respond to opportunity, how quickly you give up when things get hard, and whether you believe change is even possible for someone like you. The paradigm was formed before you had the awareness to question it. It was handed to you by parents, teachers, religious institutions, culture, and repetition. By the time you were 7 years old, most of it was already in place. And from that point forward, it has been running in the background like an operating system, filtering your perceptions, shaping your feelings, and producing your results with mechanical precision. Here is what makes this so critical to understand. Your paradigm does not care about your goals. It does not care about your potential. It only cares about one thing: keeping you consistent with what it already knows. That is why you can read every self-help book ever written, attend every seminar, feel deeply inspired, and still find yourself back in the same patterns 2 weeks later. Inspiration touches the conscious mind. The paradigm lives in the subconscious. And until you learn to work at the subconscious level, the paradigm wins. Every single time. In this video, we are going to walk through exactly what Bob Proctor taught about the paradigm, what it is, where it comes from, how it operates, and most importantly, how you can begin to break free from it. This is not theory. This is the science of the mind applied to the art of living. If you follow this all the way through, you will understand yourself and your results in a way you never have before. Bob Proctor often said that the greatest challenge in teaching people about paradigms is that the very paradigm in question makes it difficult for a person to recognize that they have one. It is like asking a fish to describe water. The fish has never known anything else, so it has no frame of reference to even begin the description. Paradigm is not a personality trait. It is not your temperament or your character. It is a collection of programs, deeply embedded mental routines that automate your responses to the world around you. Think of it as the software running underneath everything you do. These programs were not chosen consciously. They were absorbed. As a child, your conscious mind was not yet fully developed. The filter between the conscious and the subconscious, what researchers call the critical faculty, had not yet hardened. This meant that everything you were told, shown, or repeatedly exposed to went directly into the subconscious without question. If you were told money was hard to come by, that belief went in. If you watched a parent shrink in the presence of authority, the behavior went in. If you were praised only when you were quiet and obedient, the association between silence and approval went in. None of it was malicious. Most of it was well-intentioned. But all of it became the architecture of your paradigm. Bob Proctor used to hold up a blank piece of paper and say, "This is your mind. The part above the line is your conscious mind. The part below the line is your subconscious. The conscious mind can accept or reject ideas. The subconscious cannot. It accepts everything and acts on it as if it were true. This is why affirmations alone, spoken once or twice a day without emotional charge, rarely produce lasting change. They reach the conscious mind, trigger a moment of optimism, and then fade. Meanwhile, the subconscious paradigm reasserts itself and the old behavior returns, often before the day is out. The paradigm also controls your self-image, the internal picture you hold of who you are and what you are capable of. Bob Proctor was fond of saying that you can never outperform your self-image for long. You might achieve a breakthrough and reach a new level, but if your paradigm hasn't shifted to support that level, you will unconsciously self-sabotage until you return to the image you hold of yourself. This explains lottery winners who are broke within 5 years. It explains why some people can never seem to hold onto a relationship. It explains why talented people stay stuck while seemingly less gifted people flourish. The difference is almost never ability. It is almost always paradigm. The paradigm also governs your perception. Two people can attend the same seminar and come away with completely different takeaways. The person with an abundance paradigm sees opportunity everywhere in the content. The person with a scarcity paradigm hears the same words and mentally catalogs every reason why it won't work for them. Same input. Different paradigms. Different worlds. Until you understand that you are operating inside a paradigm, and that your paradigm is not reality, but merely your conditioned interpretation of reality, you cannot begin to change it. Awareness is always the first step. And awareness, in this case, is a radical act. Bob Proctor drew a clear and direct line between paradigm and results. He did not say that paradigms influence results. He said paradigms produce results, as reliably and mechanically as a factory line produces a product. Change the factory's programming and you change what comes out. Every result in your life, your income, your relationships, your health, your happiness, is a physical expression of a non-physical cause. The cause is always internal. The paradigm is always at the root. Proctor often used the example of income. He would ask audiences, why does one person earn $30,000 a year and another earns $300,000, doing similar work? The answer, he insisted, was not education, not geography, not luck. It was the amount of money each person was comfortable with at the subconscious level. Their paradigm set an invisible ceiling, and their behavior, entirely without conscious intention, kept them underneath it. This invisible ceiling is what Proctor called the terror barrier. When a person begins to move toward a goal that is outside their paradigm's comfort zone, the subconscious triggers a fear response. Not a real danger, a perceived one. The body floods with anxiety, doubt, and resistance. Most people interpret this as a sign that they should stop. In truth, it is a sign that they are about to grow. The terror barrier is the paradigm defending itself. It is a survival mechanism that has been misdirected. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between genuine physical threat and the emotional discomfort of change. It treats both as danger and responds accordingly, with avoidance, procrastination, and retreat. This is why so many people describe feeling paralyzed when they are on the verge of a breakthrough. They don't understand that the paralysis is not a warning. It is a transition point. The people who push through that feeling, not recklessly, but with deliberate intention, are the ones who transform their paradigm and their results. Proctor would also point out that the paradigm controls the actions you take without thinking about them. The habits that make up your daily life, how you spend the first hour of the morning, how you respond to stress, whether you reach for your phone or a book, whether you choose comfort or discipline, are all paradigm-driven. Since actions create results, and paradigms create actions, the logical conclusion is inescapable. If you want different results, you must change the paradigm. Not your schedule. Not your strategy. Not your to-do list. The paradigm. Bob Proctor also taught that the paradigm distorts feedback. When something goes wrong for a person with a healthy paradigm, They see it as data, useful information that helps them course correct. When something goes wrong for a person trapped in a limiting paradigm, they see it as confirmation of their unworthiness. Same event. Completely different interpretation. Completely different response. The results you have right now are perfect evidence of your current paradigm. Not evidence of your potential. Not evidence of your worth. Evidence of your programming. And the moment you truly understand that, the moment you stop seeing your results as fixed and start seeing them as feedback, everything becomes possible. Bob Proctor was not speaking in metaphors when he talked about the subconscious mind. He was drawing on a body of knowledge that stretches from the work of Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung all the way through modern neuroscience. The paradigm is not a vague concept. It has a physiological home. The subconscious mind operates primarily through the nervous system and the limbic brain, the older, emotional, habitual brain that developed long before the rational prefrontal cortex. This part of the brain is extraordinarily efficient. It handles millions of processes simultaneously without any conscious input. Neural pathways, the physical structures through which thoughts and behaviors travel, become stronger with repetition. Every time you think a thought, fire a behavior, or experience an emotion, you reinforce the neural pathway associated with it. Over years and decades, deeply repeated patterns become thick, superhighways of neural activity. This is the physical substrate of the paradigm. Neuroscientists sometimes say, neurons that fire together, wire together. This is precisely what Proctor was describing when he talked about habits embedded in the subconscious. These are not just psychological patterns. They are physical structures in the brain, and they resist change the way a highway resists being rerouted. This is why willpower alone cannot break a paradigm. Willpower operates in the conscious mind and draws on finite reserves of mental energy. The paradigm operates in the subconscious and draws on decades of reinforcement. In any sustained contest between willpower and paradigm, the paradigm wins because it does not get tired. Bob Proctor taught that attempting to change through willpower is like trying to steer a massive ship with a teaspoon. You might create tiny ripples, but the ship's momentum, the paradigm's momentum, will correct course every time. What is required is not force but frequency. The subconscious responds to repetition and emotion. It was built through repetition and emotion. Therefore, it can be rebuilt the same way. New ideas, repeated consistently and felt deeply, begin to lay new neural pathways. Over time, those new pathways can become the dominant routes of thought and behavior. This is the scientific foundation for the tools Proctor taught: spaced repetition, visualization, affirmations delivered with emotional intensity, and immersive environments that reinforce the new paradigm from multiple directions simultaneously. Another reason paradigms are so persistent is that they are socially reinforced. The people around you, family, friends, colleagues, have their own paradigms, and those paradigms are most comfortable when yours matches theirs. When you begin to change, the people closest to you may resist, not out of malice, but out of the subconscious discomfort that comes when someone in their environment begins to operate differently. Understanding the science does not make the work easy, but it makes it comprehensible. And comprehension is power. When you know why the paradigm resists, you stop taking that resistance personally and start treating it as a mechanical process to be systematically addressed. Bob Proctor was deeply influenced by the work of Dr. Thurman Fleet, who in the 1930s created a concept known as the stick figure model, a simple diagram showing the relationship between the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and the body. It became one of Proctor's most powerful teaching tools, and this model, the conscious mind, is the thinking mind. It is the seat of will, reason, imagination, and choice. It is the only part of the mind that can originate a new thought. It is also the gatekeeper, the faculty that decides what gets sent to the subconscious for acceptance and automation. This means the conscious mind has enormous power, but only if it is used deliberately. Most people, most of the time, use their conscious minds reactively. They respond to conditions rather than creating them. They let the environment decide what thoughts enter the subconscious, which means the paradigm keeps feeding itself with familiar input and producing familiar output. Breaking the paradigm begins with a decision made in the conscious mind, the decision to choose, with intention and consistency, the thoughts that will be planted in the subconscious. This is not wishful thinking. It is mental discipline of the highest order. Proctor taught that the conscious mind must be used to choose a new image, a clear, vivid, emotionally charged picture of the life you want to live. This image is then held in the conscious mind with consistency until the subconscious begins to accept it as a new reality to be matched. This is the mechanism behind visualization. When you visualize your desired result in detail, when you see it, feel it, and inhabit it in your imagination, you are sending new instructions to the subconscious. You are, in effect, hacking the paradigm formation process and using it in reverse. The conscious mind is also the faculty that recognizes the paradigm's interference. When you notice the voice that says, "You can't, it's too risky, who do you think you are?" that is the paradigm speaking through habitual thought. The conscious mind, when trained, can recognize this voice as old programming rather than truth. Proctor often said that awareness without action is merely entertainment. The conscious mind must not only recognize the limiting thought, it must immediately replace it with the chosen new thought. Not argue with it. Not analyze it. Replace it. Repetition of the replacement is what begins to weaken the old neural pathway and strengthen the new one. One of the most important exercises Proctor recommended was writing your goal in the present tense, as if it is already achieved, and reading it aloud multiple times a day with genuine feeling. This is the conscious mind delivering new instructions to the subconscious with both frequency and emotional charge, the two ingredients the subconscious responds to most powerfully. The conscious mind is your most powerful tool. But it must be wielded with intention. Left to default, it will simply replay the paradigm's greatest hits. Directed deliberately, it becomes the instrument through which an entirely new life is composed. Bob Proctor was not a theorist who stayed in the realm of ideas. He was a practitioner. He tested these tools on himself first, transforming his own life from a high school dropout working dead-end jobs to a globally recognized teacher of human potential, and then taught them to millions. The first and most foundational tool Proctor taught was the use of a written goal statement. Not a list of wishes, but a single, clear, present-tense declaration of a specific result. I am so happy and grateful now that I earn $100,000 a month, doing work I love, in a way that serves others. Written. Specific. Positive. Present tense. Read daily. Multiple times. The second tool was visualization, the deliberate, disciplined act of constructing a vivid mental movie of the desired life. Proctor recommended doing this immediately upon waking and just before sleep, when the mind is most relaxed and the subconscious most receptive. The visualization must engage all the senses and, crucially, must carry genuine emotional resonance. The third tool was the use of affirmations as commands, not passive statements, but strong, emotionally charged declarations repeated with conviction. I am a money magnet. I am always in the right place at the right time. Proctor was clear that affirmations spoken without feeling are no more effective than reading a phone book. The emotion is the energy that carries the message into the subconscious. The fourth tool was environmental immersion. Proctor believed that you could not hold onto a new paradigm in an environment built for the old one. He encouraged people to surround themselves with books, recordings, people, and environments that were consistent with the new identity being cultivated. The subconscious absorbs from the environment constantly, whether we direct it to or not. The fifth tool was study, deep, repeated engagement with ideas that expanded the paradigm. Proctor himself read Think and Grow Rich every single day for decades. Not because he didn't understand it. Because repetition is the language of the subconscious, and every reading deposited another layer of the new paradigm into his mental architecture. The sixth tool was getting a mentor or coach, someone whose paradigm was already aligned with where you wanted to go. Proctor understood that proximity to an expanded paradigm accelerates your own expansion. You absorb beliefs, behaviors, and assumptions through sustained exposure. The seventh tool was acting as if. Before the results appear, before the circumstances change, you must begin to behave in alignment with a new paradigm. This is not pretending. It is practicing. And practice, done consistently, rewires the brain and signals the subconscious that this new identity is real. Proctor also taught the power of gratitude, not as a spiritual nicety, but as a neurological reset. Gratitude elevates emotional frequency and opens the mind to possibility. It is almost impossible to feel genuine gratitude and fear simultaneously. Cultivating gratitude as a daily discipline shifts the emotional baseline from which all perception and action flows. Finally, Proctor emphasized patience, but an active, expectant patience. The paradigm shift does not happen overnight. Old pathways weaken gradually. New ones strengthen incrementally. The person who understands this keeps going when the early results are not yet visible. And it is in that continued faithful action that the paradigm finally cracks open. Bob Proctor always told his students that the paradigm shift would not announce itself with a thunderclap. It would reveal itself quietly, in the texture of daily life, in the thoughts that arose spontaneously, the choices that felt natural, the opportunities that suddenly seemed to appear from nowhere. The first sign is a change in self-talk. The inner voice that once defaulted to doubt, criticism, and limitation begins to take on a new tone. It becomes more curious, more expectant. The automatic thought in response to a new challenge shifts from, "I can't handle this," to, "I wonder how I can approach this." The second sign is a change in what you notice. Remember, the paradigm filters perception. As the new paradigm takes root, you begin to notice opportunities, connections, and resources you would previously have been blind to. This is not magic. It is the reticular activating system, the brain's attention filter, recalibrating to search for what your new paradigm values. The third sign is a change in your relationship with discomfort. When the paradigm is old and rigid, discomfort is a stop sign. As the new paradigm takes hold, discomfort increasingly becomes a signal of growth rather than danger. You begin to move toward it rather than away from it. The fourth sign is a change in the company you seek. People who were once your primary social circle may begin to feel misaligned, not because they are bad people, but because their paradigm and yours are no longer vibrating at the same frequency. You find yourself drawn toward people who are expanding, creating, and thinking in new ways. The fifth sign is a change in how you handle setbacks. The old paradigm treated failure as confirmation of unworthiness. The shifting paradigm treats failure as information. You pick up faster. You course-correct sooner. You don't spend weeks in self-pity because the setback doesn't feel like a verdict, it feels like a lesson. The sixth sign is a change in your emotional baseline. You begin to feel a quiet sense of expectancy, a low-level background optimism that was not there before. This is not naivety. It is the emotional signature of a subconscious that is beginning to believe in the new picture you have been feeding it. The seventh sign is synchronicity. Proctor spoke often about how a shifting paradigm begins to attract circumstances, people, and ideas that align with the new vision. He explained this through the lens of vibration, the idea that the mind, operating at a new frequency, begins to resonate with different external realities. The eighth sign is increased creativity. The old paradigm was a closed system. It ran the same loops over and over. As the new paradigm opens, the mind becomes more generative. New ideas flow more freely. Solutions appear where before there seemed to be only walls. Creativity is the signature of a mind that is no longer imprisoned. The ninth and perhaps most profound sign is a fundamental shift in identity. You begin to think of yourself differently, not as a person who is trying to be different, but as a person who is different. The new paradigm has become the new normal. And from that point forward, the old results simply cannot follow you, because the old you is no longer driving. Bob Proctor lived what he taught. He worked into his 80s with the energy and enthusiasm of someone decades younger, because he had long since broken free of the paradigm that told him age meant decline, that success had a ceiling, that the best years were behind. His life was itself the proof of concept. Living beyond the paradigm does not mean living without structure. It means living with a structure that you have consciously chosen, rather than one that was unconsciously inherited. The expanded life is not chaotic, it is intentional. Every habit, every belief, every standard has been chosen in alignment with the vision. Proctor taught that once the initial paradigm is broken, a new one forms, but this time, you are the architect. And the new paradigm, built on principles of abundance, service, and growth, becomes a launching pad rather than a cage point. One of the most liberating things Proctor told audiences was this: your only limitations are those you set up in your own mind, or permit others to set up for you. The expanded life is the life that takes that sentence seriously, not as inspiration, but as operational truth. Living beyond the paradigm means setting goals that are larger than your current circumstances. Not realistic goals. Goals that excite and terrify you in equal measure. Goals that cannot be achieved by the current version of you, because reaching them requires you to become someone new. That becoming is the whole point. It also means developing a tolerance for the unknown. The old paradigm was addicted to certainty because certainty was safe. The expanded life requires you to move forward without knowing exactly how things will unfold, trusting the process, trusting the principles, trusting the version of yourself you are in the process of becoming. Proctor believed deeply in service as a paradigm accelerator. The more you direct your expanded energy toward genuinely helping others, solving real problems, adding real value, the faster your own paradigm continues to grow. Generosity, it turns out, is not in conflict with prosperity. It is one of its primary engines. The relationships in an expanded life look different too. They are characterized by mutual growth rather than mutual comfort. The people you attract and retain are those who challenge you, inspire you, and hold you accountable to your vision rather than your history. And perhaps most importantly, living beyond the paradigm is a commitment that never ends. There is no finish line. Every breakthrough reveals a new horizon. Every achieved goal exposes a new frontier. The person who understands this does not seek a destination. They fall in love with the journey of becoming. Bob Proctor understood this better than almost anyone. He was still learning, still growing, still being amazed by the infinite capacity of the human mind in his final years. He was not a man who had arrived. He was a man who had committed to the infinite road of arrival, and who could not imagine any other way to live. Bob Proctor used to say that the day he discovered he had a paradigm was the greatest day of his life, not because the discovery was easy, but because it handed him the key to his own prison. For the first time, he understood that his limitations were not woven into his DNA, not written into his destiny, not decreed by circumstance or background or the modest means into which he was born. They were programs. And programs could be changed. That insight was worth more to him than any amount of money or recognition, because it was the foundation upon which everything else was built. You now hold that same key. You understand what a paradigm is and where it came from. You understand how it controls your thoughts, your habits, and your results with quiet, mechanical precision. You understand the science behind why it resists change, and you understand the tools, the proven, tested, effective tools that can gradually and irreversibly shift it. The knowledge in this video is not passive entertainment. It is an invitation. An invitation to stop being lived by a program you never chose, and to start living from a vision you have deliberately designed. The work is not always easy. There will be days when the old paradigm feels like a tide pulling you back to shore just as you were beginning to swim. On those days, return to your written goal. Return to your visualization. Return to the words of those who have walked this road before you and come out the other side transformed. Bob Proctor made that journey. The man on the cassette tape made that journey. And every single person who has ever truly changed their life made that journey. One thought, one habit, one bold and faithful act at a time. Now it is your turn. The paradigm held you back long enough. It ends today.